Hello, welcome to Bob's Dungeon. My name's Bob, I'll be your host. Campaign settings are very important to a game, and most dungeon masters, game masters, they like coming up with their own campaign settings for the games they're running, whether it be Dungeons and Dragons, Star Wars, or what have you. And some of the OSRs that are out there, they come with campaign settings pre-built into them, and then others just give the basic rules for the game and then have supplements that you can buy that have campaign settings or adventures that you can run with them. For basic fantasy roleplay, there are a lot of books out there that you can buy, and they're all under $5, or you can get the PDFs for them for free, which is very cool. I like the basic fantasy roleplay, but there's a set of books out there that I found that we're going to talk about in this video. We're going to talk about Odysseys and Overlords, and we're going to start with the Player's Guide for it. This book has 55 pages and a copyright of 2019. It was published by Aegis Studios, or AE, and all of the artwork in this book is in black and white. So let's go ahead and look at that artwork. This is the first picture we see when we open the book, which is just a black and white take on the book's cover. All of the artwork in this book is in black and white. And it's pretty decent artwork. And it runs the gambit from looking like character sketches in some pictures to taking on an almost comic book style theme in others. To use this book, what you will need is, of course, a copy of this player's guide and a copy of the Game Master guide for it and a copy of the core rule book for basic fantasy roleplay, or it says you can use it for any other OSR, but it recommends basic fantasy. You will also need a full set of dice. A full set of dice containing a 20-sided die, 12-sided die, preferably two 10-sided dice for rolling both percentiles and tens, an 8-sided die, a 6-sided die, and a 4-sided die. Character generation is extremely standard for most OSRs based off of older Dungeons & Dragons games. The first thing you do is you figure up your 6 attributes. 6 attributes in this game are Strength, Intelligence, Wisdom, Dexterity, Constitution, and Charisma. You roll 3 6-sided dice and add them together and place them in order down the line. And then you have your attributes, and it gives you a chart to figure out what kind of bonus you get for those attributes. And then it has another chart in this where it handles testing your attributes a little bit differently. Depending on your level, sets a difficulty number for standard tests when making attribute tests, which is pretty cool. You then pick a race or a species, but in this game they call it genera for genus, and they are the Abyss-Kissed, the Human, the Spell-Scorched, and the Wild Folk. You then pick a class. The classes in this game are the Bard, the Cleric, the Fighter, the Magic User, and the Thief. And they also have 2 combination classes for this game, which are the Fighter Magic User and the Magic User Thief. And you can pick one of those as long as you meet the requirements for it. Starting characters get 3d6 times 10 gold piece to spend on equipment, unless the Game Master decides otherwise. And that's pretty much it for character generation. It gives small detail in here about gaining levels and how your experience works. A little bit of detail on how to actually play the game. It's got a list of magic user spells that you can use and cleric spells. Talks about how turning works, saving throws, making attacks. And it's a standard D20 type rule roll a 20-sided die against a difficulty number. You must score that number or greater. And that's pretty much it. In the very front of the book, they have this line of text right here. And that gives you pretty much the entire setting and history for the game. So I'll go ahead and read it to you real quick. What it says is, in the ancient times, the gods watched over humankind. This was a golden age of learning and peace. Humans revered the gods, living in harmony with the divine and the companion animals. Magic flowed freely allowing the learning and the faithful to the altar of forms, prevent aging, and preserve health. The wild folk were born in this time as humans and companion beasts united in love. While most of the gods rejoiced at this development, Ragnar, the god of conquest, was jealous and appalled by the humans choosing the animal companions as mates instead of the gods. This caused the divine war, during which the gods who agreed with Ragnar tried to kill the other gods. The first casualty of the war was Amber, the goddess of knowledge. When Amber died, her scholar priests, the keepers of the arcane, were caught in a magical backlash, creating the spell scorched. This war of gods, called the Chasm, raged for 1,000 years, during which time the followers of Ragnar courted and worship and love of the many humans as they could. From these unions, the Abyss Kissed were born. After a long and bloody conflict, Ragnar and his followers were defeated. The gods who fought them were Ragnar's followers into the abyss, where they are believed to still be fighting to this day. Only Ragnar and Chandra, the goddess of the moon and nature, remained among the mortals. Declaring a ceasefire, Ragnar retreated with a small retinue of cultists to the Tower of the Wretched Wrath. Chandra and her highest clerics went to the Crystal Library on the surface of the northern moon. Mortals were left to determine their own fates. The magic that had bound the souls of the humans and the companion beasts shattered, though wild folk were already numerous enough to persevere. The spell scorched taught the ways of arcane magic sporadically, protecting their art nearly to extinction. Clerics of Chandra and Ragnar spoke of worship, but most mortal kingdoms rejected the gods and magic, relying on steel and blood to determine righteousness and rulership. Now the mortal lands are divided. A dozen kingdoms lie scattered across the world, separated by dangerous wilds filled with bandits and monsters. The bravest mortals act as adventurers, guiding travelers between the kingdoms, killing monsters to thin their numbers, and plundering ruins in search of lost treasure of the Golden Age. This is the world of Odysseys and Overlords. And that's pretty much it. So let's move on to the Game Master's Guide. This book has 61 pages and a copyright of 2019. It was published by Aegis Studios, or AE, and all of the artwork in this book is also in black and white. So let's go ahead and look at the artwork in this one. All of the artwork in this book is also in black and white. And it's pretty decent, setting a proper tone and mood for this game. Even if some of it still takes on that comic book type feel and look to it. But the monsters each get their own picture in the monster section of this book. And here's a happy little vampire just to say hello to you. And again, This book starts off with the same column of text that was found in the Player's Guide to give you the background and history of this campaign setting. And then it goes into how to build encounters, gives you some options for rolling attributes, tells you how to build adventures, build NPCs, has a list of creatures that are specific to the setting, and it states that if it's not listed here, then check in the monster catalog for the basic fantasy role-playing game and use those statistics. But some of the creatures in that book are also found in here when there are changes for a flavor for this setting, which is pretty nifty. And it is mostly taken up by the creatures in this book. Tells you how to do the settings and stuff, how to reward experience points. So it does a good job between these two books of giving you what you need to play the game, but all the little nitpicky stuff is taken care of from using the basic fantasy roleplay book. In the back of the book, it has like 3 pages describing a few different locations and kingdoms that can be found, but there's no world map for you anywhere. So that's pretty much your lot with it. It has a character sheet that you can photocopy and use in the back of the Player's Guide. And that's pretty much it for Odysseys and Overlords. I know there's a book that is a collection of adventures that you can get to use with this game. And it says they're going to come out with some more books describing more locations. But that's pretty much it. Which brings me to 3 questions. Would I play a game using these books? Yeah, it sounds pretty fun. It sounds very interesting. It does something a little bit different than the norm and adds some flavor to things. So yeah, I'd play a character in it. Would I run this game? Yeah, I'd run it. I've got a copy of the Basic Fantasy core book, and I've got these. So yeah, I'd probably run this sometime. It sounds kind of fun. Would I recommend these books? Yeah, I'd recommend them for something different to do with your old school game. When I bought these books, I thought they were a standalone game. I didn't know that they required the Basic Fantasy book, so I lucked out because I already had the Basic Fantasy book. It even says on the front here on this little text that it requires Basic Fantasy role-playing game, but I didn't notice that when I ordered them. But it's still pretty cool. It gives enough detail that you could probably run without it, but I would be highly recommended that you have it. And it states that you can run it with other OSRs if you wish. So that's pretty much all I got to say for Odysseys and Overlords. Thank you for joining me. I had a look at these books, and hopefully you join me next time where we'll talk about something else. Bye.